This is the official SAT prediction video for the November 2025 SAT test. I've gone through every Blue Book test, every pattern, every question type, and even took the digital SAT test myself. So in this video, I will break down 5 questions I believe the College Board is going to use and show you how top scorers think through them step by step. So let's dive in. Prediction number 1, the angle question. Most students mess this up because they forget this simple rule that connects two totally different ways of measuring angles. So the question says, the measure of angle y is 60 degrees. What's the measure in radians of angle y? Now, here's what you need to know. Degrees and radians are just two different ways to measure an angle. And there is one simple rule that connects them. To convert degrees into radians, you always multiply by p over 180. Why? Because 180 degrees equals pi radians. That's the key facts that you gotta remember. So let's use it here. We've got 60 degrees multiplied by p over 180. So that's 60 divided by 180 is 1 over 3. So the answer is pi over 3. And that's it. So the correct answer is choice B. Prediction number 2. Scientific question. This passage sort of sounds kind of scientific, and they're talking about scientists, global deforestation, and forest definitions. But don't get intimidated. Let's go through piece by piece. So it says scientists studying global deforestation are having trouble because different countries use different rules for what counts as a forest. So some define it based on tree coverage, others based on land size. An example of that is Norway says if you've got 10% tree cover, that's a forest. Brazil is like, nah, we need 30% tree cover. And some countries use both vegetation and land use. Then the passage ends with this inconsistency makes it really hard for scientists to compare global deforestation. Okay, so now, our summary is different countries have different definitions, so scientists can't compare stuff easily. So that's literally it. Now, let's go through the choices. Scientists find it so simple to compare deforestation when all countries use the same definition. Well, yeah, that would be nice, but the whole point is that they don't have the same definition, so A is just wrong. Choice B. Despite differences in definitions, scientists typically define forests as 30% or more tree coverage. You know what's wild? Most students don't get a low SAT math score because they're dumb, but because they have no clue what they're bad at. They solve hundreds of random, easy questions and maybe even feel productive. And that's exactly why their SAT scores stay stuck. And that's where these 13 full-length realistic SAT math practice tests come in. And those who use them improve their SAT math scores from 680 to 740, from 660 to 780, from 700 to 760. And they all use these exact 13 tests. Every test feels exactly like the real SAT, but the real power? The weakness analysis system. After every test, it breaks down your performance, not just by topic, but by skill. So go to the description of this video, click the first link to get access to the 13 SAT math practice tests and start your weakness analysis system. And if just one of these tests helps you find 2 weak spots, that's already 20 to 40 extra points right there. Even if you're already good at math, these practice tests help you a lot, because at that level, it's not about learning new formulas, but it's about finding those tiny mistakes that keep you stuck below 780. And these tests show you the small gaps that normal prep books or YouTube videos never catch. The exact things that separate a 700 from an 800. And here's the best parts. The first test is completely free. Sign up, take the test, and get your personalized weakness analysis report for free. So click the first link in the description, start your free test, and begin boosting your SAT math score today. Nope, that 30% thing was only for Brazil and the passage never said scientists use that rule globally. Choice C. It's difficult for scientists to compare global deforestation because countries define forests in different ways. That's literally our summary. That's the main idea. Choice D. Scientists ignore local definitions in Norway. What? That's just a random sentence someone made up, so it's wrong. So yeah, choice C is the answer. Prediction number 3, the line question. So here's our plan. To find the equation of a line, you just need to know two things: the slope and the y-intercept. Let's start with the easy part, the y-intercept. So let's look at the point when x is 0, y equals -4. That means the line crosses the y-axis at -4. So if you already know, the equation is gonna be something like y equals something x minus 4. Now let's find the something part, which is the slope here. The formula for slope is m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So plug in the points that we have in the question. So that would be m equals 2 minus -4 divided by 2 minus 0. So that would be 2 plus 4 over 2, 6 over 2 equals 3. So the slope here is 3 and the y-intercept is -4. Y equals 3x minus 4. That's choice B. Prediction number 4, pattern question. The sentence is comparing two actions, what area students do and what regular students do. The first part says students start practicing pieces by Mozart as easily as age 4. So the structure is start practicing, and that's verb plus ing form, and that's the pattern here. Now the second part should match that same pattern because it's the same type of idea, same tense and same kind of verb. So it should be, while students in conventional programs usually only begin practicing such works at the age of 6. So now let's look at the answer choices. Well, choice D here is exactly what we wrote, begin practicing, which is clean, parallel, and perfect. So yeah, D is the correct answer here. Prediction number 5, stats question. So now let's talk about this SAT stats question. A juice company says their bottles have 2 liters on average. Maya grabs 50 bottles, measures them, and finds that the average is 2.08 liters. But there is a margin of error of 0.04 liters. Now they ask, for all bottles, what's the most appropriate conclusion about the average volume? V. So the margin of error basically means your result. 2.08 could be off a little bit in either direction. So we take the estimate plus or minus the margin of error. And that's the rule. Mean plus or minus margin of error. So 2.08 minus 0.04 equals 2.04. And 2.08 plus 0.04 equals 2.12. And that gives us 2.04 and 2.12. And that's exactly choice A. The table shows Evergreen National Park visitors for 2015 and 2025, but the way the years are listed is not directly what you plug into the equations. So the question asks for V of t, the number of visitors t years after 2015. So t equals 0 corresponds to 2015, and t equals 10 corresponds to 2025. Now let's plug points into the answer choices instead of building the line from scratch. So let's start off with t equals 0. In 2015, there are 450,000 visitors, so we need an equation that gives v of 0 equals 550. So let's look at the options. Choice A, 450 minus 6 multiplied by 0 equals 450. Choice B, 450 minus 60 multiplied by 0 also equals 450. So A and B are correct when t equals 0. Choice C, so that would be 450 minus this crazy number, so that's wrong. Choice D, 450 minus 6 multiplied by 0 minus 2015. So that would be 450 plus that sort of crazy number, so that's also wrong. So C and D are clearly wrong here. Next, we should plug t equals 10 for 2025. So we want v of 10 equals 390. Choice A, 450 minus 6 multiplied by 10. So that would be 450 minus 60, which equals 390, which is something that we want. Choice B, 450 minus 60 multiplied by 10. And that would be 450 minus 600, which equals 150, which is not something that we want. So this confirms it. A works perfectly. You just have to plug points in instead of risking slope calculations with all these fractions and negatives. And students often mess up by just trying to subtract the actual year numbers or miscalculating slope. So plug and play keeps it very clean and safe here. So here they're asking us to determine triangle is measured in degrees Celsius above 20 degrees. Which of the following does the model predict? These answers are basically describing how the number changes as T increases. For every increase in temperatures by 1 Celsius, the number of visitors decreases by 200. So let's check that. P of 0 equals 200. P of 1 equals 200 multiplied by 0.85 equals 170. So it didn't decrease by 200%, it only decreased by 30. And that already eliminates A. Next, for every increase in temperatures by 1 degree Celsius, the number of visitors decreases by 15%. Well, P of 1 equals 200 multiplied by 0.85, and that equals 170. That's exactly a 15% decrease, and it sounds promising. But we have to check the units. T is in degrees above 20 degrees, so an increase of 1 degree Celsius is exactly what this represents. So this looks correct. Option C says for every increase in temperatures by 5 degrees, the number of visitors decreases by 200. P of 5 equals 200 multiplied by 0.85 in the power of 5, which kind of equals 84. So the decrease is 200 minus 84, which equals 116, not 200, so that's wrong. Option D says for every increase in temperature by 5 degrees, the number of visitors decreases by 15%, but P of 5 equals 200 multiplied by 0.85 in the power of 5, which sort of equals 84. So that's a decrease of much more than 15% because exponential decreases compound over multiple increments. So that's wrong too. Now, they're asking us to find the y-intercept of an exponential equation, and these can seem very tricky, but the pattern is really straightforward once we recognize it. So the function y equals c multiplied by 4.5 in the power of x minus d, and it's defined in the xy plane where c and d are positive constants. The question asks for the y-intercept, which means the value of y when x equals 0. Let's plug in x equals 0, so we get y equals c multiplied by 4.5 in the power of 0 minus d. So 4.5 in the power of 0 is 1. So this simplifies to y equals c minus d. And this is exactly how we find the y-intercept in any function. Set x equals 0 and simplifies. Now let's check the answer choices. Choice A is not correct because it ignores the negative d. Choice B is not correct because it ignores c multiplier. Choice C is exactly what we calculated. Choice D is the reverse and would be negative if C is more than D, so it's wrong. So the key takeaway is for exponential functions of the form y equals c a in the power of x minus d, the y-intercept is always c minus d, because a in the power of 0 equals 1. So always set x equals 0 and simplify it first, and this will be your safest move on the SATs. To help you out, I put together an insanely valuable masterclass where I shared so much valuable knowledge, and inside I also break down 3 specific tactics that can help you hit your dream SAT score, no matter where you are in your SAT prep journey. So I'm so excited to finally share it with you, and you can grab access using the link in the description or the top comment below. Okay, so here they're asking us to find the length of the longer side of a rectangle given a ratio and the perimeter. So this is way more straightforward than exponential stuff, but let's carefully read the story. in rectangle wxyz, the ratio of wx to xy is 7,4, and the total perimeter is 132 meters. So first, let's translate the ratio into variables. So let the shorter side xy equal 4k and the longer side wx equals 7k. We do this because ratios can be scaled by a common factor to make calculations easier. Next, remember the perimeter formula. Perimeter equals 2 multiplied by length plus width. So here, that would be 2 multiplied by wx plus xy equals 2 multiplied by 7k plus 4k, which equals 2 multiplied by 11k, which equals 22k. And the problem says the perimeter is 132 meters, so we set up the equation 22k equals 132, solving for k equals 6. Now plug k back in to find the actual side lengths. So the longer side wx equals 7k, which is 7 multiplied by 6, which equals 42 meters. And the shorter side xy equals 4k, which equals 24 meters. So the length of the longer side is 42 meters. And the key takeaway here is when you get a ratio and perimeter, always turn the ratio into variables. Use the perimeter formula and make sure to solve for the scaling factor and then compute the actual length. And the SAT likes this approach because it keeps arithmetic simple and it avoids mistakes with fractions or proportions. So here they're asking us to outline the significance of its contribution to literature. So let's start by reading the first sentence, seeing exactly what the question is asking. So the student wants to outline the significance of this contributions to literature. So the key here is the significance that is underlined in our minds right now. So if we read the answer choices and ask ourselves, does this accomplish the goal? Choice A just states that he was celebrated during that Renaissance. That is true, but does it fully convey the significance? No. So you can eliminate it. Choice B mentions his poetry addressing social issues and reflecting experiences of African Americans. Well, this is important context, but it doesn't capture the breadth of his contributions, so it's wrong. Choice C combines jazz rhythms with everyday language in his poetry, making literature accessible while promoting cultural awareness. So this seems to hit the significance point because it explains how he influenced literature stylistically and also culturally. Now, choice D mentions inspiration for generations and being studied in schools. This is true, but focuses more on influence rather than the direct contribution itself. Now, we check the student's notes just to confirm choice C uses relevant information from the notes. Yes, it combines jazz rhythms and everyday language and mentions accessibility and cultural awareness, and all these points are in the notes. Therefore, choice C is the best one here because it directly addresses the significance of his contributions to literature rather than just stating facts or later influence. And if you're confident, you can skip the last step when you're in a rush, but checking notes can help you in the second module. Now you know all these SAT prediction questions, but if you don't know the right strategies to use on your exam, then you might fail the SAT. So make sure to watch this video where I broke down every SAT strategy that you need to know to get your dream SAT score.